For 23 years, I believed in love. I believed in Natalie. Our life together felt unshakable, like a fortress built on years of shared dreams, whispered promises, and quiet mornings spent in each other's arms. She had been my everything, the woman I trusted with my soul, the mother of my children, the one person I thought would never betray me. I never saw the storm coming. Our love story started in college, back when the world seemed limitless. Natalie had an effortless charm, the kind that turned heads without trying. Her laughter carried through crowded rooms, drawing people toward her like a gravitational pull. She wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. And somehow, out of all the people in the world, she had chosen me. We built a life together. Marriage, kids, a home filled with warmth and laughter. I worked hard to give us everything we ever wanted. Long hours, late nights, all to ensure a future where neither of us would ever struggle. And Natalie? She played the role of the perfect wife. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there, subtle cracks in the foundation I refused to acknowledge. The way she distanced herself, the excuses for why she had to work late, the mysterious new passwords on her phone. I ignored them, convincing myself that love meant trust, and trust meant never doubting the person you devoted your life to. Then came that fateful night. I had been away on a business trip, a last-minute conference in another state. My flight home was scheduled for the following morning, but after days of back-to-back meetings, I longed for my own bed, for my wife's embrace. So, I took an earlier flight. I didn't tell her, I wanted to surprise her. I pictured the way her face would light up when she saw me, the way she would rush into my arms, just like she used to. But the surprise was mine. I pulled into the driveway, expecting to see the glow of our bedroom light. Instead, the house was dark, except for the faint flicker of candlelight filtering through the living room window. A romantic dinner, perhaps? Hope bloomed in my chest. Then I stepped inside. The scent of wine lingered in the air, mingling with something else, cologne that wasn't mine. A trail of discarded clothes led toward the staircase. A dress. A man's shirt. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I followed the path, each step heavier than the last. Muffled voices drifted from our bedroom, our sacred space, our sanctuary. Her voice. "I love you, Daniel." The words stabbed through me like a blade, sharp and merciless. I didn't need to see the rest. I didn't need more proof. The woman I had cherished for more than 2 decades had given herself to another man. I stood there, frozen in the hallway, my mind warring between rage and disbelief. My fingers clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. Every memory, every tender moment, every whispered, "I love you," between us, had it all been a lie? I should have barged in, confronted them, demanded answers. But something inside me broke in that instant, something beyond repair. I turned around, walked back down the stairs, and left the house without another word. The man I was before that night died in that hallway. And the man who walked away? He would never be the same again. I drove for hours, no destination in mind, just me and the open road. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the occasional gust of wind against the windows. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, but the pain in my grip was nothing compared to the wreckage inside me. Natalie had cheated. The woman I had built my life around had betrayed me with some younger, arrogant bastard named Daniel. The name alone sent rage coursing through my veins. I should have confronted them. I should have torn that house apart, let them feel even an ounce of the devastation crushing me. But what would it have changed? She had already made her choice, and I was nothing more than collateral damage. At some point, exhaustion forced me to pull into a dimly lit motel off the highway. The room was stale, the bed stiff, but none of that mattered. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring blankly at the floor. How long had she been sleeping with him? Had it been months? Years? Had she ever loved me at all? I replayed every moment leading up to tonight, searching for the exact second I had lost her. Was it when she started going to the gym more often? when she began dressing up for work even on casual Fridays. Or had it happened long before that, in quiet moments I had dismissed as nothing? I barely slept, and when morning came, I wasn't any closer to finding an answer. By the time I made it back home, the sun was rising, casting golden light over the place I had once called mine. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Not after last night. I stepped inside cautiously, half expecting to catch them again. The air smelled like stale wine and regret. Natalie wasn't in the kitchen, wasn't waiting for me with an apology or even an excuse. No, she was still upstairs, still tangled in the sheets with him. I couldn't stay here. Grabbing a duffel bag from the closet, I threw in whatever clothes I could find. My hands shook as I zipped it up, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. As I turned to leave, I spotted something on the dresser. Our wedding photo. A younger version of myself stood beside Natalie, smiling like he had the whole world in his hands. That man was a fool. I grabbed the frame and smashed it against the wall. The glass shattered, just like our marriage. I walked out without looking back. The fallout. A week passed before Natalie even tried to reach me. The first call went unanswered. The second. The third. She left voicemails, texts, but I didn't care. Then came the message that nearly made my blood boil. Can we talk? You left before I had a chance to explain. Explain? What was there to explain? That she had moaned another man's name in our bed? That she had whispered words of love meant for me into someone else's ear? I ignored her. A few days later, I got a text from our daughter, Emily. Dad, can you please talk to Mom? She's a mess. I didn't respond right away. Emily was 21, old enough to understand, but still too young to see just how unforgivable some things were. To her, Natalie wasn't just my cheating wife, she was her mother. But I wasn't ready to face her yet. Another week passed. Then, one evening, there was a knock on my motel door. I knew before I even opened it who it would be. Natalie stood there, looking nothing like the confident woman who had once owned every room she walked into. Her blonde hair was a tangled mess, eyes red and puffy from crying. She wore one of my old college sweatshirts, as if clinging to the past would somehow erase what she had done. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I said nothing, just stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap like a child afraid of being scolded. I remained standing, arms crossed. "I'm sorry," she began. I scoffed. "For what, exactly? For sleeping with him? Or for getting caught?" She flinched. "For hurting you." "That's not an answer." Silence stretched between us. She twisted the hem of her sweatshirt, staring at the floor. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh? And how was it supposed to happen? Were you waiting for the right moment to tell me you had found someone better?" She looked up sharply. "No. It's not like that." "Then tell me what it's like, Natalie," I snapped. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you threw away 23 years for some cheap thrill." Tears welled in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you." I shook my head. "No, you don't get to say that. Love doesn't do what you did." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of my sweatshirt. "I was lost, okay? I felt invisible. Like I was just existing. And then Daniel came along, and he made me feel desired." I cut in. "Excited? Young again?" She nodded, ashamed. "Yes." I clenched my jaw, my fingers digging into my arms. "And was it worth it?" Her silence spoke louder than any answer she could have given. I exhaled slowly, forcing down the fury threatening to consume me. "Why are you here, Natalie?" She hesitated before whispering, "Because I don't want to lose you." I closed my eyes, willing myself to feel something, anything other than the gaping void she had left behind. But I couldn't. The woman in front of me was not the same person I had married. And the man I had been, the devoted husband, the fool who had trusted blindly, was gone. I opened my eyes and met her gaze. "You already have." Natalie's breath hitched as my words sank in. Her lower lip trembled, hands wringing the fabric of my old sweatshirt like she could squeeze the regret from her bones. But regret didn't erase betrayal. It didn't unwrite the nights she spent in another man's arms. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "You're just angry." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Angry? No, Natalie. Anger was when I stood in our bedroom, watching you with him. Anger was when I packed my bag and left without tearing that house apart. I shook my head. This isn't anger. This is clarity. She blinked, confusion flashing across her face. Clarity. "I see you now," I said coldly. "I see exactly what you are." Her breath came in short gasps, as if the weight of my words was physically crushing her. "I'm still your wife." "Wife?" I scoffed. "A wife doesn't do what you did." Her eyes darted to my hand. "You're still wearing your ring." I looked down at it, the simple gold band that had symbolized everything we had built together. 23 years of love, struggle, joy, pain. I slid it off my finger and held it up between us. "Not anymore." I let it drop. The metal hit the floor with a hollow clink. Natalie gasped like I had just severed her lifeline. "Please," she begged, reaching for me. "I'll do anything." I stepped back, avoiding her touch. I used to crave the warmth of her skin, the softness of her lips. Now, the very thought of her hands on me made my stomach turn. "Why now, Natalie?" My voice was calmer, but no less cutting. "Why beg me to stay when you were so willing to throw me away?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "I made a mistake." I shook my head. "No. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is missing an anniversary. What you did was a choice." She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I watched, detached, as sobs racked her body. Finally, she looked up, her eyes wild with desperation. "He left me." There it was. The truth. I let out a slow breath. "So that's why you're here." She bit her lip, then nodded. "Yes." The admission should have hurt, but I felt nothing. Just a cold, sinking certainty that I had made the right decision by walking away. Natalie sniffled, rubbing her arms like she was suddenly cold. "Daniel, he told me he loved me." Her voice cracked. "He promised me a future." I thought I meant something to him. I tilted my head, studying her. "How long?" She hesitated. 6 months. A bitter chuckle escaped me. 6 months. And you threw away 23 years for that. Her eyes brimmed with fresh tears. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "Every text you sent him, every time you lied to me, every night you spent with him. It was all intentional." She sucked in a sharp breath. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "You don't. But I still love you." I exhaled through my nose, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "No, Natalie. You love what I gave you. Stability. Loyalty. Security." I gestured around the room. "And now that he's gone, you're scrambling to get that back." She shook her head violently. "No, it's not like that." I folded my arms. "If he hadn't left you, would you still be here?" Silence. That was my answer. I took a slow step toward her, lowering my voice. "Tell me, Natalie, when you were with him, did you ever think about me?" Her bottom lip quivered. "Did you think about the nights I stayed up late, waiting for you to come home? The times I kissed you, not knowing you had been with him hours before?" My voice was steady, but inside, my stomach churned. "Did you think about our family? About Emily?" Her breath hitched. Or did he make you forget all of it?" A sob tore through her. She covered her mouth, but it couldn't muffle the sound of her guilt. For a moment I felt something close to pity. Not for her, but for the version of me who had once worshipped this woman. The man who had believed she was his forever. That man was dead. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, slipping it on. "I have nothing left to say to you, Natalie." Panic flashed in her eyes. "Where are you going?" I met her gaze one last time. "Anywhere but here." As I reached the door, her voice cracked behind me. "Please don't go." I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I walked out, closing the door on the wreckage of what we had once been. And I never looked back. The night air bit at my skin as I stepped outside, leaving Natalie and everything she represented behind. The world outside felt different, clearer, sharper, like I was seeing it for the first time without the fog of deception clouding my vision. I walked without direction, each step taking me further from the woman who had shattered my trust. The echoes of our past tried to cling to me, but I shoved them aside. I wasn't that man anymore. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting another desperate message from Natalie, but instead, Emily's name flashed across the screen. My daughter. My anchor in the storm. I answered, steadying my voice. "Hey, sweetheart." "Dad," she breathed. Relief flooded her tone. "Where are you?" I exhaled, looking up at the dark sky. "Just out." A pause. "Did she find you?" Emily knew. Of course she did. She had seen the destruction Natalie left in her wake, had watched me crumble under the weight of betrayal. "She did," I admitted. Silence stretched between us before she finally spoke. "And she begged me to take her back." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Of course she did." Her voice dropped. "Please tell me you didn't." "I didn't," I assured her. "That part of my life is over." She released a slow breath. "Good." We stood in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. "I hate what she did to you, Dad," Emily whispered. "But I'm proud of you." Pride. It had been a long time since I'd felt that, since I'd earned it. "Thanks, kiddo. I love you." "I love you too," I said, meaning every syllable. After we hung up, I felt lighter, as if the chains of the past had finally fallen away. A nearby cafe glowed with warm light, the scent of fresh coffee drifting through the air. I stepped inside, needing a moment to breathe, to exist outside the wreckage of my marriage. The place was quiet, save for soft jazz playing in the background. I ordered a coffee and found a corner booth, sinking into the worn leather seat. Minutes passed, maybe longer, before a voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Daniel." I looked up. Lena. A face from another lifetime. She stood before me, uncertainty in her hazel eyes. Time had been kind to her, soft curls framed her face, a quiet strength in her posture. I hadn't seen her in years, not since life pulled us in different directions. She had been a friend once, maybe something more, in another universe where I hadn't met Natalie first. I offered a small smile. "Lena." Her lips curved, cautious but warm. "Mind if I join you?" I gestured to the seat across from me. "Please." She slid into the booth, her eyes searching mine. "You look different." I let out a small chuckle. "Long story." She tilted her head, studying me. "I've got time." And for the first time in a long time, so did I. I wrapped my hands around my coffee, feeling something I hadn't in months. Hope. A new beginning. And as Lena smiled at me from across the table, I realized something. I had lost 23 years to a woman who never truly loved me. But the rest of my life? That was still mine to live. And I wasn't looking back.